Second chain of islands. All this area up in here with the lots of amounts of extra water still in our system, still hanging out. It's been here now for a few weeks. Higher big bull tides that we've had come in here. So some of these areas like that, we just kind of get in and around these islands here. Some of them are still exposed, and lots of them are not with the amount of water that's in there. Of course, if you catch that on a falling tide, depending on how much water's dropping out for you, then it become exposed later in the day or the afternoon. But we just kind of get around these. We'll get up on the islands that are exposed and just kind of work ourselves off of that until we get into the depth of water that we really want to be at, and just kind of work the edges and see if these trout primarily are hanging in around there. Every once in a while you'll catch a black drum or redfish, but majority of it has been trout that's been in and around these shell bars and shell reefs that are up here on that second chain island. Some of it's a little squishy, but it's very manageable to wade. So some of it's a little deeper too. So that's the thing you have to kind of take in consideration with the water that we have in here. Some of it's fishing deeper than typically it would if we had a normal tide. So you have to take that in consideration right now while we've had these big bull tides in place. A lot of water. Like I say, we're in that transition moon, so it's not a super productive week as far as catching lots of fish. We just had to scratch, had to really work, and that's the thing that goes into it when you get those types of days. You structure and bait what you really want anywhere that you fish, but you really want that, especially when it's a little slow. And having different choices as far as profile and the color's pretty much going to dictate itself based on what the water clarity is. But your profile sizes can change based on how productive things are for you or lack thereof. Like I say, I mentioned that the fish are showing up on the shell. So you get back here on the backside of Ayers dugout. All this area back in here has been pretty good for us, catching trout and redfish off of that, off the point. Of course, on the Ayers Reef all the way over here, all is all accessible, and it's doing well, so you can fish either side of it based on what your winds are. If you get on the southeast breeze, you get on this side of it over here. Of course, if you got a north. Of course, we had a little weather system that moved in us on Friday, so we had some northeast winds, east northeast. So it kind of set up differently from that bad standpoint, so you could fish down the reef that way. But anyway, we're just kind of focused in around that and just kind of went to work on these for a day or so to work around these, just being really diligent about fishing them, just seeing if we can find pockets of fish that work, and that'll happen. You'll go through a little stretch there where you may catch 8, 9, 10 fish or fewer, and then all of a sudden it kind of goes into a lull when you start moving. So those fish kind of hold off into pockets like that, or off an edge for whatever reasons, either the structure they like, or there may be just a concentration of some bait that you're just kind of hanging into, waiting to eat. So that's always kind of a thing that you have to consider that when you do. So, but you'll come back into them, because I say don't wade too fast to them. Once you start to catch fish, just kind of hunker down, just wait, and just work the area of fan casting all out in front of it and working all that area really diligently and very thorough, so you can get as many opportunities as you can during that. So that's why I always say that the majors and minors are very key. So if you have a slow time frame that you can really focus on that and just kind of go to work, give it, most of them are considered a 2-hour window. We actually add another 30 minutes on the front and back into that, so it ends up being a 3-hour window. So you're very thorough, very surgically working an area, and you're not probably going to miss fish from that standpoint as far as walking through them. But if there's fish there to be had, you'll have plenty of opportunity to catch those. And that's the great thing about the wading aspect of it. Even here on Ayers, you got a couple little reefs that are off that point, even a lot of shell around that little edge right there, and then kind of just working down this. And again, with a lot of water in here, we can work back into this one little back lake that's right here off it, and just walk across the shore, the land, walk off into it and work it. So we throw in top waters back in there. We got a few blow-ups here and there, but nothing great. But anyhow, we're fixing to be in a full moon phase here in a few days. So keep that in your mind there, as those 10 days that surround that should be pretty good, especially early morning, late evening for you. Middle of the day might be a little difficult, but just depending on which time frame that you like. just keep that in your mind whenever you start to work these types of areas. We transition into that time frame. Here off of Long Reef Bend up to Jaybird, all the way back down towards Spalding. Back in this area here, of course, you got the little reefs that are out here as well. Make sure you work on some of those things. They've got a lot of construction stuff going on out there, barges and stuff, moving stuff around. So be aware of that as well. So that's kind of new up in that area. But anyway, again, with the amount of water that I mentioned earlier that we've had in here, so these back lakes start to really light up. A lot of water pours into those things, so it gives you opportunities to fish some of these areas that necessarily haven't been fishable for a little bit. So, but they have been now. So, been working these back bays, these back lake areas, all in here. This one here is called Sherman's. This whole area here, pretty good sized back lake, lots of opportunity on either side, and you can set it up on however your wind is blowing on that particular day. Then it pushes you all back into here. You get back into these lakes back in this way, and you can work all this stuff, all wadeable, all boat worthy. You can get in there to it and not have to terribly worry about it too terribly much as far as being a little bit too skinny for you. But right now with the water levels that they are, this is all accessible. We found primarily redfish, trout back in these areas, just working the shorelines, working out deep, which, again, there's not really a deep area that's in these. You know, maybe belly deep and some of them out in the middle, but most of them are thigh deep, waist deep because of the extra water that we've had in there. So that's one of the things that we've really kind of lit up for us. But you're able to work this stuff. Like I say, I like working the shoreline here on the close to the bay side, which would be the northwest side of it. And then, of course, if you got the right kind of wind, you can push down on this back edge here on the east end of it and work all that out there. You got points, you got grass, you got potholes, you've got all different kinds of structure. You got the right kind of structure, especially for now moving forward. So it gives you opportunity. Like I say, redfish have been primarily sprinkled in trout here and there. I think we even pulled out a flounder out of there one day. So you get lots of different species that are in there, but primarily redfish is what we were kind of working on. Throwing topwater back in here is a really good choice. There's starting to be a lot of grass that's floating just because of the amount of water we have. It's starting to pull it out of there and push it. So it just depends on, how long you want to stay with it. But it's been productive. We've had opportunities with the topwater, but our primary baits, again, on what we were throwing has been our down south, and we've kind of stuck back here. We've stuck more with the paddle tails, throwing more of the knock and tail, some of the mirror lure little johns, the burner shad back in here. It's got this little bit bigger paddle tail, and of course Marker 54 has a paddle tail now that they're produced out, and so we threw that a little bit. So those were the consistent baits for us that were producing. But again, the wild card days, it was like I say, it wasn't super productive as far as catching lots of fish. We just had to scratch here and there, and primarily when we got into our major or minor, that's when we caught the most of our fish or had our most opportunities to catch our fish anyway. So that's kind of what you have to do no matter where you're fishing. Incorporate that major or that minor into that fishing day, and just really pay attention, track it when you start getting bites in and around that time frame. As long as you're in the fish. If you're not in fish, then it's not going to work for you. They just don't magically appear because the major or minors happen. You have to be in the area that's got some fish holding for you for it to be productive. So always remember that. But again, working those areas like that, need a thigh deep water is very good. Lots of good opportunities that are back in there. Just get yourselves back in there and work that. Even on the outside, you got a lot of good grass out there. Lots of opportunities on the outside as well. So we had some, weather that moved in on us on Friday, so it was a little bit difficult. So we had to work some of those areas like that, and staying protected is always a key thing. So always keep that in mind whenever you're out on the water. Safety is a very important thing because things can go sideways in a minute with the weather that pops up. So always take a look at that. Again, be patient with it right now. We're fixing to get into that full moon phase, and the fishing will get better each day as we get closer to that time frame. Back up here in Turtle Pen, again, a lot of extra water in our system, which I've already mentioned. So lots of areas like this. Open that up, working these shorelines on either side based on what your wind is and how it sets up for you. Get all the way down to Copano Creek and get back in this little back lake back there. This is, like I say, when we get extra water in our system, I like to get back in here all the way back to the creek area that goes back up into here. You can run your boat back up into that and to get some of these little back lakes that are back in here. You can work in that, and you find redfish that are tailing back in there in some of these times at work. We primarily just kind of stayed in the only thing about that, man, when you try to get out and wade that, it's muddy. It's muddy big time back in there. So be aware of that. So you may just want to fish it from the boat. If you've got one of the, either power pole it down and just kind of work, or just use your trolling motor, whatever you want. But just be aware, if you're going to try to wade, that's what happens back in there. So, but some of this area back up in here is wadeable, soft in there. But again, we're working structure back in here, because with the extra water and stuff, and kind of stay off on that deeper edge that's out here on the front, and get out on this flat that's over here all the way on the point. Working the drop edge, the grass, and all that, finding and locating fish. But again, like I say, not a super productive week from a catching standpoint. Opportunities were there, just not many. So that's the one thing you have to take into account, depending on what's going on. That's why I always stress a lot on the majors and the minors. If you'll put that in the forefront of what area, wherever you're going to fish, whether it's here in Copano, Mesquite, Carlos, wherever, doesn't matter. Make sure that you incorporate that into an area that you really want to target, place-wise, as far as the area goes, and then try to align it with that major or the minor through that particular time frame of the day, and then go to work. Structure, bait, two main things. No matter where you fish, got to have that no matter what. Then that wild card day or new moon or full moon phase, whatever, and adjust accordingly to your profile size. And you'll find yourself being pretty consistent catching fish. And once you kind of locate and find some fish, just hunker down and just work. And don't walk through them. Don't try to rush it. Just take your time with it and fish these areas. Work the areas. Work all of it. Fan casting, covering water with those baits. Especially, it's always great if you've got 2 or 3 people with you that can fish, so you got multiple different baits that are going in their profile size-wise. Color's going to be pretty much dictated across the board just because of the water clarity, whatever that is on that day, dark or light, and or even super dirty or super clean, just whatever. Then that color is going to pretty much be dictated by that. But profile can vary, so that gives you that advantage over that. So you kind of can dial it in pretty fast and start going to work on them even faster and finding and catching them. But like I say, we worked these areas back here, worked the shorelines nice and slow, just took time working areas, pulled a few redfish out of here, put some decent trout here or there. A lot of it was all catch and release, so it was a lot of fun from that standpoint. So enjoyable days on the water in these back areas. So like I say, when that water gets up, we like to take advantage of these particular areas back in here, because they don't open up all the time, and sometimes it's not super fishable unless you're like in an airboat or something light effect that you can get in super shallow water. So it keeps us on the outside. But take advantage of those time frames when you got more water in the system. It's been very important for you to check your tides in the morning before you decide to head out, or in the evenings if you're going to fish in the afternoons and stuff. Always take that into account if you got an incoming outgoing tide and how much water median level is already available to you. So once you start doing that on a consistent basis, your catching will become more consistent and you'll have more and more fun on the water daily.